The biggest strength of every NFL team. Last time we did the NFC, so this time we're doing the AFC. Link for the previous video can be found in the description if you missed it. The quality that I name for every team is what I believe gives them the best possible chance of winning games day in and day out. Now, of course, this is just my opinion, so if you disagree, I encourage you to leave your own thoughts down in the comments below. Let's go division by division, starting with the AFC East and the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins' biggest strength is most certainly their pass game. A good shout can also be given to their secondary, but with Jalen Ramsey being out probably until December, you really can't go against that passing game. Tua, when healthy, which is a big if with him, plus Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, is one of the most dynamic pass games in the NFL. It is super explosive, there's very few receiver duos who can keep up with that level of speed, and they can score points in bunches when they're in the flow state. When healthy, the Dolphins can win shootouts against even the best teams in the league, and they immediately become a contender to make the playoffs. We know what the Dolphins' ceiling is with this trio, it's just the health concern, particularly Tua. If he can stay on the field and avoid any major setbacks or injuries, then the Dolphins are in pretty good shape. But unfortunately, his health has become very questionable after all of the major injuries that he sustained last year. If they can't keep him on his feet, you never know what might happen. Buffalo Bills, quarterback. Josh Allen had some inconsistent moments in the red zone last year, and he deserves some criticism for once again not being able to finish the job and get the Bills to the Super Bowl. But Josh Allen just boasts so many valuable assets to this Bills team and makes them as strong as they are. He is the leader. He has one of the strongest arms in the league, if not the strongest. He's got some of the best legs. He's tough. He's strong. He's a leader. And he can make just about any receiver on that team look good with some of the bombs that he throws. In most people's books, Josh Allen is without a doubt a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Josh Allen is one of the most versatile players at his position, and if he can just play with a chip on his shoulder after the disappointing end to last season and can maybe limit those red zone interceptions and start converting them into touchdowns a bit more, the Bills are going to start winning more of those games that they ended up losing last year that you know they shouldn't have, and when that happens, it just might be the difference between finally going to the Super Bowl and disappointing Bills Mafia for what seems like the millionth season in a row. New England Patriots defense. The Belichick-led defenses have been a staple in the NFL for years. They're one of the models of consistency that everybody should be looking after. They may not always be the number one defense per se, or have a lot of the stars that you'd see on other amazing defenses, but they always find a way to make it work because Belichick is just an excellent football mind. There's no one better in the business at getting maximum value out of people who really fit his system. Man knows how to absolutely torment new quarterbacks in the NFL and can even give the veteran QBs a serious run for their money because, again, he's just a typical genius with this kind of stuff. They're always one of the best when it comes to forcing turnovers, and they're almost always top tier when it comes to scoring defenses. They create a lot of opportunities for the offense to get back on the field and convert easy points, if not keep their teams in the game. Just that defense and I guess the special teams alone are going to help the Patriots win a solid number of games. New York Jets, young defensive stars. I think it's fair to go with Aaron Rodgers or maybe the Rodgers to Garrett Wilson connection, the backfield. You could do a bunch of stuff there. But I think we all know that the future of the Jets lies behind their young pieces. Particularly speaking, Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner, who might be two of the best players at their respective positions in the game, despite being super young in age. Quinnen Williams has elevated his game to be one of the best young interior linemen in the NFL. He's coming off a career year where he doubled the number of sacks he had the previous season, he had a couple of forced fumbles, and also, he just seems to be hitting his stride as a player and unlocking his true potential. He's growing with his confidence by the day. The Jets just paid him big time, and he is one of the leaders of that squad that makes them so formidable. People sometimes forget that although the Jets get memed on quite a bit, they were still a pretty competitive team last year, despite having a horrendous offense, and a big reason why is because of that nightmarish defensive line led by Quinnen Williams. But he's not to be outdone by his partner in crime, Sauce Gardner, who in a lot of people's eyes is already the best cornerback in football. It's only his second season in the NFL, and he literally just turned 23 years old at the end of August, and he's already receiving that level of praise. As a rookie, he got first team All-Pro. The first rookie corner to do that in over 40 years. Add in the fact that he allowed just 54 yards in man coverage across 18 games and led the league in passes defended, and you have a monster of a corner that nobody's going to want to test next year. People will be afraid to pass it to his side of the field. Test him and you're gonna regret it. He's tall enough to cover the big guys, he's fast enough to keep up with the speed demons, he can do a little bit of everything, and he leads the way for a shutdown secondary potentially that could make the Jets defense a force to be reckoned with. Pittsburgh Steelers, TJ Watt. I nearly went with their offensive young talent, as I think Najee Harris, Kenny Pickett, and George Pickens are about to form something special over there in Pittsburgh. But if we're being honest, the staple behind this team's success and consistency on the defensive end is TJ Watt. When healthy, he might be the best defender in the NFL. And when not healthy, there is a drastic difference in how the Steelers perform on the defensive end. It's like a completely different team. They crumble like paper mache without this guy. It's not often where one guy makes that kind of difference. Without TJ Watt, there is no Steelers. Outside of quarterback, it's rare to find one guy make that kind of impact on your team, but TJ Watt happens to be that kind of guy, where he can completely disrupt the game plan of an opposing offense and completely open everything up for the rest of his team. Sadly, TJ's presence and being on the football field and having a productive season is likely the difference between making the playoffs and watching them from home, unless the rest of the team takes a huge leap in the right direction. Cleveland Browns running game. Honorable mention and shout out to Myles Garrett, of course. He's a beast, but in my honest opinion, the thing that separates the Browns from being in contention and just watching from the sidelines this year is a reliable run game. Nick Chubb has been a top back in the NFL for the last 4 seasons, and it needs to continue if the Browns want to find any sort of success on the offensive end. There's a lot of question marks brewing about Deshaun Watson and his ability to get back on track and be the quarterback he once was many years ago. There's really no idea if he'll actually ever be the same player again, and if the Browns want to help him get back into that rhythm and regain his confidence after being super rusty, it'll help to have a good run game that can open things up and put less pressure on him. Nick Chubb needs to churn out another season where he's getting 1,200 plus yards from scrimmage. He's got to get double-digit touchdowns to make those red zone situations easier. He's got to rip off those big runs and do well in the passing attack. He's got to be that every down back that'll give Deshaun Watson a little bit of breathing room. Ever since the Baker Mayfield debacle, he's pretty much been their most important offensive asset for the better part, well, I guess worst part of the last 3 or so years. Baltimore Ravens. Let's go with the offensive unit as a whole. The defense is not bad, but the star of the show is Lamar and what he runs on that side of the ball. What makes the Ravens so special is they're extremely versatile. Their run game is one of the best in football when Lamar is healthy, and now that he has some healthy receivers, he just might start slinging it like we saw literally last year up until the injuries happened. The Ravens heavily emphasize the run game, and they're usually pretty dangerous there, as they usually have a couple of good backs, plus Lamar to account for as well. That can be a nightmare to prepare for defenses, but now their offense in terms of passing might be the best we've seen it be in years. Even if Odell Beckham is not the same player he used to be, and they overpaid for him, he's still a veteran wide receiver, and you have Zay Flowers on top of it, who just might be the best wide receiver in the class. And now Lamar is finally happy, and so long as he can stay healthy, he might just tear up the NFL in ways that we haven't seen since his MVP season. Cincinnati Bengals passing game. I mean, no duh, right? Joe Burrow, in some people's eyes, is the second best quarterback in the league, only behind Patrick Mahomes. And on top of it, you have one of the strongest receiving cores in football with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. They've got size. They've got speed. You've got the LSU connection. There's a lot going on with this receiving core. It's super dangerous. They're good in the red zone. They can rip off big plays literally just from Chase alone. And when healthy, you just can't stop them. And that's the thing you have to emphasize, right? Health. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase in particular. If those guys are on the field, if they're healthy, it's always winnable. But Joe Burrow has sustained multiple injuries in his career. Chase missed some time last year. Burrow even recently had a preseason scare. Everything seems okay right now, but now you've got to make sure that it stays that way. Keep Burrow off his butt. Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's go with the offensive unit as a whole. This team is young, and they have a whole lot of potential behind their star young quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, who took a major step in the right direction in his sophomore season after just an okay rookie year. Coach Doug Peterson has done wonders for his confidence, and he's on the right direction to potentially be one of the top quarterbacks in the league this year. He's got the talent, he's gaining experience, you got a playoff win with him last year. Things are looking on the up for Trevor Lawrence, and he also has some pretty decent pieces to work with. Travis Etienne was pretty good for running back last year, and then you also have Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley, who's finally back after a season suspension. It's been a long time since anybody's seen him play, and he just might take the league by surprise. Him and Lawrence could become a pretty deadly 1-2 punch. Throw in Zay Jones and Evan Ingram, who had a pretty solid bounce-back season after looking like garbage on the Giants, and now the Jaguars have potentially one of the scariest new offenses in the league if everything clicks and the development stays on track. And I'd say there's a lot of room for that to continue, seeing as they play in a very weak AFC South. The Jaguars have a chance to build up some serious momentum and become a formidable force in the NFL for years to come behind that offense. Houston Texans. Laramie Tunsil. It may sound ridiculous to go with one singular offensive lineman as the biggest strength for an NFL team, but with the Texans, it's pretty apparent that Laramie Tunsil is without a doubt the most talented individual player on the roster. It's important to remember that the Texans are rebuilding right now. There's a bunch of question marks and uncertainties with most positions on this team. You have a first-year quarterback, a first-year head coach, a lot of young people who still haven't proved much of anything in their NFL careers. But one person that's gonna be dependable no matter what is Laramie Tunsil, who is one of the best in the NFL at that left tackle position. Left tackle is perhaps one of the most important positions when it comes to how high your offense can go. You need a good blindside blocker. A lot of the best teams out there, they emphasize that left tackle position. That's the leader of the offensive line in a lot of scenarios. And with Laramie Tunsil, he's going to fit that bill. He's going to not just do his job, but also help those young guys out a ton. And most importantly, try and keep that young quarterback of his on his feet to potentially make some more throws to develop his confidence and his talents and get him the reps he needs to be a reliable franchise quarterback. Laramie Tunsil could play a pretty important role for the Texans overall if he can stay healthy. So I'd argue both from a talent perspective and from a value perspective that he is the most important person on that Texans organization. Indianapolis Colts Buckner-Leonard duo. Much like their division rivals, the Colts are in the midst of a rebuild, and the direction of their team is questionable at best. Much like their division rivals, the Colts are in the midst of a rebuild and don't have all that much to look forward to, and their direction is questionable at best. You have a rookie quarterback, an offensive line that's getting worse and worse, and one of the worst receiving corps in the NFL. Plus, you have Jonathan Taylor, who wants nothing to do with your team anymore. That pretty much leaves you grasping at straws while you pray to the Lord that some of the talented players that you have on the defensive end can get the job done, that being Shaquille Leonard and DeForest Buckner. Colts fans may not have much to look forward to this year, but those two can always be versatile playmakers that can help keep the Colts in some games and maybe help develop the confidence and the talent on the offensive end to give them a bit more reps by forcing some turnovers against some of the other weaker teams in the league. Buckner and Leonard can kind of lead the way and help coach up some of those younger defensive players, and they themselves can be pretty big-time playmakers. You got Shaq Leonard, who wasn't healthy last year, but we know when he is healthy, he's one of the best on-field tacklers, and he literally led the league in forced fumbles a couple years ago. He's a force to be reckoned with, still pretty young in age, and DeForest Buckner is still an excellent run stopper and a pretty solid pass rusher given his size. These two are pretty much some of the only players on the team that Colts fans can truly look forward to watching, and they just might be some of the only people that keep them in games. Tennessee Titans run game. They may have added DeAndre Hopkins to maybe help Ryan Tannehill out a little bit, or whoever ends up throwing balls over there, but we all know that this town still runs through Derrick Henry. When you're getting 1,500 plus yards per year in your sleep, and you're one of the best power backs in the NFL, and you lead the league in carries again for the third time in the last 4 years with almost 350 touches, it goes to show you just how important you are just to make your offense move in the right general direction. Getting Hopkins is going to help, especially if he can still be good, which you'd expect him to, as he'll at least be a star receiver that Tannehill can throw the ball to. But in a world where Tannehill gets injured, and let's be honest, health is a concern after last year, then it's going to be all on Derrick Henry again. There is a solid chance that this offense is still going to roll completely through him. I mean, even if Hopkins is still there. The ground game is going to help make things a lot easier, not just because he's so good in the red zone and can get you a ridiculous number of yards and rip off those long runs out of nowhere, but also because he demands a lot of attention from defenses with preparation and loading the boxes. He could serve as a decoy even now that they have DeAndre Hopkins, so him and Tannehill can connect a bit more and get that passing game going that we haven't seen in, let's be honest, a very long time. Derrick Henry, in more ways than one, definitely runs the show in Tennessee. Vegas Raiders, Davante Adams plus Josh Jacobs. Like last year and many years prior, the Raiders' offense pretty much means life or death. They need to put up a ton of points if they even want to have a chance in most of their games this season, because we sure as hell know that that defense is not going to be doing much of anything. It is one of the worst in the NFL. It is Swiss cheese, and Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't exactly inspire a lot of confidence individually either, especially with health concerns in mind. For that offense to go, it's got to be on two of the most valuable playmakers at their positions, aka Adams and Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is coming off a year where he is the reigning leader in rushing yards and yards per game. He was an absolute workhorse last year, and we've got to see much of the same. He recently agreed to return to Raiders camp off some kind of agreement with his contract. He's going to finish off this year as a Raider and do his absolute best, and the Raiders are going to need every single yard possible from him to make that life of Jimmy G just a little bit easier. And anything that he can't do is going to be on Davante Adams, one of the best route runners in the league, some of the best hands. He's got to be open as much as humanly possible so Jimmy G avoids doing something really stupid. Jacobs and Adams need to become the league's new most dangerous dynamic duo. If they can become that dual threat that we all know they can be with their talents, the Raiders might actually have a chance. But either way, everything that the Raiders find successful this year is likely going to run through them. LA Chargers, passing game. Justin Herbert is the man. He's one of the premier young talents in this league, and he just became one of the richest players ever, and rightfully so with how dangerous he has been on this Chargers team since his rookie season. He boasts one of the strongest arms in NFL history, and a pretty underrated clutch gene just because he plays on an anti-clutch Chargers team. Herbert is excellent. He's the franchise guy, and some people argue a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now, despite being at such a young age, and he's got some pretty strong receivers to throw to when healthy. Keenan Allen may be a veteran and is getting a bit up there in age, but he's still got some of the best hands out there. And accompanied by Mike Williams, the Chargers have a pretty versatile passing attack that can score points in bunches, make big plays happen out of nowhere, and just score at will whenever it's needed. There's still an obvious choking meme to overcome, but with the talents they possess on that offensive side, with a franchise QB that could dominate this league for years, the Chargers offense is amongst one of the best in the NFL, and it's going to give them a chance to go on a playoff push, even if most people don't necessarily believe in them. Kansas City Chiefs. It's gotta be the quarterback. Patrick Mahomes is a magician with the football. You've heard it all. There's really no compliments I could give this guy that you have not heard already. But really, he's just the best player in the game right now. He might be the only shot anyone ever has for the rest of time to catch up to Tom Brady and become the GOAT. He's got one of the craziest arms, he makes passes that no one in their right mind should be able to make, and he just does more with less. He may have Travis Kelce, his main buddy, but outside of that, his receiving core is not special, and yet they still went on to win the Super Bowl last year, and he just finds ways to make everybody else around him so much better, and always seems to make the right throw and the correct decision at the right time. Mahomes is the best player in the game right now. He's even been voted as much, and so long as he's healthy and on the field, the Chiefs always have a chance at the Super Bowl, regardless of whatever else they're fielding. And when one guy can affect your team and the outcome of games to that extent, it goes without saying that you are one of the most valuable players in football, let alone your team. With the type of talent that he possesses and the universal praise that he continuously gets, it goes without saying that he is not just the biggest strength of the Chiefs, but arguably the biggest strength of the National Football League. And lastly, closing out the AFC is the Denver Broncos. The Broncos have some question marks revolving around their quarterback and their weak receiving core, amongst other things, but one thing that you can most certainly count on with the Broncos is their secondary. Pat Surtain, Justin Simmons, Kareem Jackson, that's about as good as it gets when it comes to a complete secondary. Simmons and Surtain were both all-pro caliber players last year, with Surtain in particular being argued as one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. The Broncos' biggest strengths in recent years have usually revolved around their defense, and this year should be no different. And it's in large thanks to this secondary and how well they can defend in a pass-oriented league. They've got some pretty dangerous people just in their own division to worry about, and if they can help slow them down at least, maybe that'll give Russell Wilson some kind of chance to cook and give the Broncos some life after a pretty disappointing first year with him at the quarterback position. There's a lot of questions about if the Broncos can succeed, there's doubts about offense and the coaching, but one thing you're never going to doubt and something that you'll always believe in is most definitely that incredible secondary. Will it be enough for the Broncos to be successful this year? I guess we'll find out soon enough. But that's pretty much it. That is, in my opinion, the biggest strength of every AFC team coming into the 2023-2024 NFL season. What do you think of my takes? Do you agree? Or some things that you'd change? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, it would mean a lot to me if you could give it a like. And of course, on your way out, be sure to subscribe for more NFL content every single week.